Dante's Inferno, a very famous 14th century epic poem, describes Dante's descent into hell. According to Dante, there are 9 circles of suffering, and as one can imagine, they get worse as you go on and on. Spoiler alert, the final circle is basically sitting in a room watching Canada Action Plan ads over and over again on a loop. By now, everyone is familiar with these ads. You can't watch a hockey game or an episode of Stephen and Chris in this country without a Canada Action Plan ad telling you to love your government because your government loves you. My favorite one is the one that tells us how much our government loves and cares for our veterans. I swear to you, if I have a stroke in the next 12 months, it will be while I'm watching one of those commercials. Governments are not supposed to spend taxpayers' money on ads promoting their own party or their election platform. End of story. Now, I'm not saying this government is the first one to do it, far from it, but let's give credit where credit is due. They have turned it into a fine art. They have spent over $620 million tax dollars on such advertising since they've been elected. Partisan advertising has become like doping in sports. Those who do it defend it, but we all know it's designed to give one party an unfair edge. And we all know it's cheating. Canada's Action Plan. The only thing honest is the title. Canada, I know what that means, and I know what the action is the government's doing to us when they put those ads on TV. I would draw a picture, but that you can't show in prime time.
And Rick Mercer totally rocks.
Yes, he always does. He remembers the action plan and the click to hell that you get once you check it out.
Tax dollars well spent telling us that there are supposedly jobs out there. I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
You're tuned into Video Radio, independent media.
For an intelligent world.
And we are talking about conservative fails in epic fashion.
Of course, we are involved in a little conflict in the Middle East, and of course, it's your tax dollars at work again. However, the most transparent Canadian government in history is trying to keep those costs under the radar.
I'm getting an F-35 feeling out of this.
Yeah, me too. Check out this questions from the West Block on the Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs.
Well, joining me now from Kiev in Ukraine is James Bazan, the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of National Defense. You know the estimates of how much this is costing us because the military gave it to you. What is it about those estimates that you don't want Canadians to know about?
Well, you've got to remember that all the costs of the mission in Iraq are going to be incremental. A lot of the costs are baseline costs because salaries and training and maneuvers and all that are something that we do on an ongoing basis. There is some incremental increases that we are going to have to budget for. But more importantly, we want to report back through the normal processes the actual costs of the mission as they become known.
Okay, I want to pull up a website here. This is from the Department of Defense in the United States. Anybody can look at this. It gives the daily cost of the American mission. It gives the total cost since the mission began, and it gives details on all the airstrikes on a daily basis. If the Americans can do this, and we've seen that the Aussies have also told their people about their costs, if the Aussies can do it, if the Americans can do it, why aren't we doing it? What are you afraid of? I mean, can Canadians not be trusted with this information?
No, you got to remember that an estimate can change. Activity and potential involvement will go in ebbs and flows, and so you never know what those final costs are going to be. And I think that as long as we are accounting for every tax dollar and reporting back the tax dollars that are actually spent, is in the best interests of the taxpayer.
All right, James Bazan joining us from Kiev in Ukraine. Thanks very much for your time.
Ah, yes, that F-35 feeling.
Yes, of course, the American government is a little more transparent with their own people, and they are telling them what it's costing, which is, I don't know, a lot of money anyway.
You know, we've got enough money to feed absolutely everybody that's going hungry if we weren't buying weapons we don't need, but that's a whole nother story.
And maybe there's some ministers whose salaries we may be able to cut off. It seems that a few of the federal cabinet ministers have come under a bit of fire for things they've done and said.
Just a small problem. I'm sorry, she was reading a newspaper. He didn't know reasons for stuff. I mean, it's like a three-ring circus.
Yeah, don't forget Fantino messing with the veterans.
Okay, some butts are getting heaved and hoed, but check this out.
On that frigid night in December 1989, the shooter at École Polytechnique separated the men from the women. As he opened fire, he screamed, "I hate feminists." He murdered 14 women. It remains Canada's worst mass shooting.
While we may never understand what occurred, why this happened, why these women were singled out for this horrific act of violence, we have to stand together, Mr. Speaker.
NDP leader Tom Mulcair was stunned.
We know why this happened. We know why these women were singled out. It's because they were women.
The shooter killed himself but left behind a manifesto blaming his failures on women. The NDP say that tells us exactly why the shooting happened.
Is there anything that the minister would like to correct in his previous statement?
The minister seemed taken aback by the criticism.
Of course they were singled out because they were women, Mr. Speaker. That was exactly the point of expressing misunderstanding among anyone out there that would possibly suggest that women and girls should ever be targeted, should ever be subject to violence, Mr. Speaker. That is the emphasis.
That didn't satisfy the NDP leader.
We got back some more bafflegab because he couldn't explain it.
It came on a day the Prime Minister was busy defending two cabinet ministers. There are calls for the Veterans Affairs Minister to go.
Why is he still there?
When will the Prime Minister remove this minister?
The opposition says Fantino misled Canadians when he announced $200 million over 6 years for veterans' mental health, which turned out to be $200 million over 50 years.
We take care of veterans for their lifetime.
And on Monday, the Environment Minister was caught reading the paper while the NDP asked about reports some in her Nunavut riding were scavenging for food in a garbage dump.
Will the Prime Minister tell his minister to put down the newspaper and start doing her job?
So that makes 3 cabinet ministers in hot water this week. It's only Tuesday.
So it's stellar. Like, I mean, who could take Harper's place?
I mean, well, there is Jason Kenney. You know, he's probably being groomed for the spot.
Yeah, sure. We're finding all kinds of stuff out about the Conservatives right now. Very interesting side story, too. And I'm really looking forward to this one hitting the news. With their new prostitution legislation, certain hookers on the Hill are gathering up names of Conservatives that use their services.
That would be interesting to have that come out.
I cannot wait until that one comes out. Just remember, one of Harper's trusted aides and advisors, of course, married a hooker. But that's another story. Okay.
A couple of months ago, there was a court decision that came down investigating the Robocall scandal.
Yes, we don't really have a fairly elected government. They stole the election, fraudsters that they are.
But the silence on the conviction of Michael Sona is rather deafening.
Yes, silence that's deafening. Check it out.
Believe it or not, a Conservative was sentenced to prison on Wednesday. Not a joke. Somehow they slipped through the cracks. Now let's see, which of the charged Conservatives could it be?
Well, there's Dean Del Mastro, who's convicted of charges of overspending and then trying to cover it up.
Or there's Pamela Wallin, former Conservative senator who was caught claiming over $300,000 in travel expenses.
And of course, Mike Duffy, who's absolutely lousy with charges, 31 of them in fact.
Well, it's none other than this guy.
Harper? The Prime Minister is in jail?
No.
My God, Bob, that's crazy.
No, Adam, no, it's the other guy. Michael Sona, who allegedly masterminded the robocalls that misled Liberal voters in Guelph.
Him? This guy's a child. This guy's the guy who's behind robocalls?
Probably not. I mean, the judge of this case even said, and I quote, he likely did not act alone.
Oh, so this guy's taking the heat for other Conservatives who might have been in on this.
Yeah, it's like an episode of The Wire.
Yeah, but instead of Omar, it's Screech from Saved by the Bell. Bob, they're going to destroy him. He's so thin. I hope someone's looking after him on the inside, right, Bob?
Let's ask his lawyer.
He's a strong man, and you know, he'll have to do what he has to do.
Wow.
But hey, I think we can all sleep a little more soundly knowing that this vicious crook is finally behind bars.
I guess you could say it's getting a little hot for this sauna.
Okay, Adam is a human.
Every time I think robocalls, I'm going, really? You're supposed to have faith in the electoral process?
Yeah, you can tell it's completely corrupt. And of course, when they do get caught, they throw some unfortunate under the bus.
Yeah, I know. How did he get the poison pill in this case? There should have been ministers' heads rolling, and of course, we should have seen another election, but, you know, justice, correct, right, and wrong.
Yeah, most transparent, accountable government in history. Yeah, right.
Now, there's been a call to the UN for UN observers at the next election, federal election. I agree.
That would be a really grand idea. Of course, I don't have much faith in the UN either.
And, you know, if you think that voting counts, you have not been paying attention. But we do have to hold these guys accountable, and accountable for muzzling science.
Yeah, apparently that they want health sciences to be going to industry for funding. Somehow I don't think that will benefit all of us.
You know, they only research things that are beneficial to their bottom line, and of course the government doesn't want to hear from any scientists.
No, because, you know, that would be science, and they have no faith in science.
Facts? Not here. This is Canada.
To cut the budget by 50% is alarming.
Detrimental to health research.
We struggle with the lack of full disclosure.
The reaction has been swift and angry as official letters of objection are being emailed between scientists protesting the changes to federal research funding. At Dalhousie University, Debbie Martin fears she could lose support for her research into Indigenous health.
We're doing research that's, you know, looking at housing issues in the north. We're looking at tuberculosis. We're looking at food security, people eating out of dumps.
Other scientists share her concerns.
I am angry, yeah.
Fred Ween has had a long career researching Aboriginal health in Canada.
Certainly I'm pushing back. If we don't speak up and do something about it, then it's almost game over for this field.
Right now, most of Canada's health scientists are funded through the Canadian Institutes of Health Research, the CIHR, partly through 13 specialized agencies that target Aboriginal health, child health, and other aspects of medical science. But now the funding to those bodies will be cut in half. The rest of the money will be pooled, and scientists will have to knock on doors to find matching funds before they can access public money that used to be available with no strings attached. At Thompson Rivers University, Professor Rod McCormick says Indigenous scientists won't be comfortable joining forces with industry.
Many of these resource industries are the cause of many of our health problems, so to get funding from them would be problematic.
And there are concerns about other areas of research, such as child health.
We think that it threatens the viability of health research for children in this country.
In what's been called a rebellion, officials from 8 of the 13 agencies have written letters of protest. So far, they've had no response from the CIHR.
The CIHR has not responded to our request for an interview about the changes, which come on the heels of a major overhaul of its primary funding process. And all of that is adding to the confusion and anxiety in Canada's research labs. Kelly Crow, CBC News, Toronto.
So muzzling scientists in a monetary fashion.
That seems to be the Harper program.
You know, and they do not want to hear about facts. They don't want to hear about science. I don't know, it's like they have this religious conviction that nobody knows anything but them.
Yes, climate science? No. La, 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 I can't hear you.
Yeah, I know. Here we are, November, -13 last week. It's +3 degrees right now in Kelowna. I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
You're tuned in to Video Radio, independent media.
For an intelligent world.
And thank you for staying tuned to this, a little bit of sanity in the middle of all the nonsense.
Subscribe here.
Yes. 3 minutes coming up.